we think that so long as we are engaged in activities, intentional actions, that's when we are doing Kamma. In this tradition, the teachings that we have from the Buddha, the earliest teachings of the Buddha, to a great extent, at least on the surface, that might seem to be an adequate representation of what Kamma is, intentional action. But we happen to, many of us, hold on to the view that, oh, so long as I am not engaging in bad actions, then automatically it means that essentially I am doing good actions, or abstaining from, by simply not doing that action, the good action, or in this case the bad action, bad intentional actions, evil action, harmful action, then it should be fine. There are aspects to it that need to be explored and understood. When a person says, well, I have stopped doing those things, they might have simply stopped because they physically are unable to do those evil actions. It's very similar to someone who would splurge or waste, engage in wasteful spending, spend money that they don't have. I have met quite a number of people who, without even working, they would be given a credit card for emergencies and they would max out, meaning use the whole entire credit line and be in debt. And then they would apply for another credit card and then max that one out as well. And then they would come to you asking you for money, promising you that they're going to pay it back. Until all those doors are shut, they're in bankruptcy, they have no money to spend, and you go and speak to them and they say, no, I don't spend money. Now you don't. You don't have the means to go ahead and waste money. You've lost all the money you had, you were making now, and then eventually you went into your credit cards and you started using money that you didn't have. So now you truly don't have any resources. So we shouldn't think that, oh, now the person is not doing or following such a lifestyle, so therefore they are not wasteful. This is where we need to change our understanding of Kamma, because the person is still engaged in, at least the after effect, the momentum is still there. They might not be truly engaging in intentionally living while doing something bad per se, engaging in some evil action. They just don't have the means yet. But the internal mechanism is still functioning as it did before. They just need a credit card. They just need the wheels to be changed and they're flying in that same direction. Why? Because the person's mindset is the same. It has not changed. For example, an evil person, and by the way, that's a term we have to get comfortable with using, that is. We have neutered our language by removing the term evil there are evil people in the world. And they're not necessarily a minority. You just have to open your eyes. You just have to admit that they do exist, who delight in causing harm to others. And they're not just the politicians, they're not just the so-called elites. You have evil people in your world, in your own circle perhaps, close circle perhaps. So we need to be careful in just lumping everyone together simply because of our well-wishing capacity, which should be there, but we need to be wise enough, well, at least not to be gullible. So this is part of you protecting yourself. The Buddha talks about what might be some of the factors that bring one truly good fortune in the Mangala Sutta. He says to be wise enough to not hang out, to not have around you as companionships, as individuals who are in your circle, who are fools, who are evil. Who don't have your best intentions in mind. To avoid those already is a great source of well-being, great fortune. But even more so, to be able to identify those individuals who truly have the best of intentions towards you in their mind, in their hearts. Those who are wise, preferably wiser than you. Those who are truly good beings, and they also exist, by the way. So the wise person is a person who goes ahead and identifies them and surrounds oneself with such people, praises such people. So here the question is about, simply because if a person is not engaging in evil actions as they did before, let's say when they were young and now they are elderly, they're very old, they even sound so benign, such lovely, lovely beings now. But then you bring someone who was there, who has seen them in action, who was engaged, or was in their, at least aware of their actions, their evil actions when they were young, those elderly people, when they were in their younger days, or they had resources at their disposal. They were able to enact their intentions. So those witnesses come along and they'll have to scratch their head and say, wasn't this the same person who did this and this and that? And others might hush them up and say, no, that was in the past. Or, we don't believe you. Or, look at them now. Oh, they're such lovely, lovely people now. They're a lovely, adorable, elderly, old person. They could never possibly have done that or could do that. All that is not important. Ultimately. Because we have to consider that the possibility, at least, that if this individual, this same person, if and when he is offered that same youth that they had, the resources, the virility, the ability, the strength, the means with which they would go ahead and do the same things, could that be possible? And this is what I'm trying to answer here in relation to Kamma. So if the momentum has not stopped, has not shifted in the opposite direction, even if the person visibly might not be engaging in an evil action, per se, observably, they would still be very much equipped with the tools and means, internally at least, to engage in them. They physically might not have the ability to go ahead and cause all that, the harmful behavior that they exhibited when they had the means, when they were strong, when they were young, when they were powerful, when they were in positions of power to inflict pain and suffering, deceptions and whatnot, all these other evil behaviors in those days. Now they're not, though. So one has to be very careful to at least not fool oneself. Hey, even in secret to themselves, they might say, oh, I was a horrible person, this and that, but they never come out and admit it. At least to those whose lives they've affected negatively, those whom they've perpetrated in the past. Instead, they just hope to have it be buried and then, yeah, I die and it disappears. No. This is what the Buddha always warns against, especially in terms of mental actions. This is something that in the West, actually also in the East, even at the time of the Buddha, people would come to debate with the Buddha to prove to him that physical action is the most important. Maybe close second would be the verbal action, one's speech, as being important. But the Buddha would say, no. Those two are important, yes. But there's one type of action that's even worse or more potent, and that is mental action. This you don't find anywhere at the time of the Buddha. Later on you find this also in Christianity, of course. When Jesus was asked about, there was a person, I think, from what I remember, who came and asked about which one is worse. So long as the questioner was saying basically, if I don't engage in adultery, that should count, right? I didn't engage in adultery, so I didn't, in a sense, break a precept or did not commit a sin in Christianity's terms. And Jesus corrects them, says, no. What about your mind, he says? Because you might not be engaging in that act of adultery, but you're thinking about doing that, even though you're physically not doing this. That's the same, he says. That is something he got from Buddhism, from the Dhamma. It's a beautiful principle, which unfortunately most people don't practice. So long on the surface it looks like I'm not engaging in it, and physically I might not in fact be doing this. That should count for everything. No. So such an individual who has engaged in evil actions in the past, but they're not able to do them again now physically because they're incapable of doing those or don't have the means or the etc. They're still doing it in their mind, and that is what's keeping the momentum going. This is very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. Because you're going to go ahead and lie to yourself or try to convince yourself, hey, not that many people know about what I've done over there, this and that, and I'm not engaging in it, so this is just going to die out and no one's going to know about it and I'm going to be scot-free. Nope. That's why many people are shocked at the moment of death, when the body breaks down and they die, and they find themselves opening their eyes in a most atrocious, hellish realm. There's no escape. There's no convincing your way out of it. There's no sugarcoating. There's no bribing anyone. You cannot control at that moment the outcome of your actions. It's too late. It's too late. Think of actions as, be they good or bad, by the way. Think of actions as a boomerang. They will always come back to you. Whatever action you commit, they will always come back to you, meaning the outcome. Always, 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 always will come back to you. Now, most people will take that boomerang and treat it as a weapon to enforce their will upon others, to throw the boomerang at other people with the intention of causing harm, cutting them into pieces, torturing them, abusing them, whether in thought, speech, or physical action, making them lose their job, tarnishing someone's reputation, trying to break up people simply because you don't want them to be together, because you don't feel good about that. You're jealous. You're conceited. You lie, you deceive, you destroy with the boomerang. Now, the boomerang will always come back to you. You might not visibly get hit by that during your lifetime. That's a big possibility, of course. And that's what society, being sneaky, learning the rules of the game, as they say, to avoid, to dodge, to not be caught, as politicians are known for, to hang out with the right crowds, can provide you some protection. I use that term very loosely here. But sooner or later, you're going to be slapped, hit, struck by your own boomerang the moment you close your eyes for the last time. This is 100% guaranteed. This is unavoidable. Unavoidable. For anyone who has not seen truly, directly, freedom. For anyone who has not yet attained freedom from craving, freedom from this terrible cycle of rebirth, freedom from this constant thirst for more, freedom from the tendency to grab, freedom from likes and dislikes. In other words, freedom from living life that is unwholesome. So the boomerang will come back, unavoidably, unmistakably. Even if the person got away with their crimes, let's say. People like, there's so many examples. You just have to turn on to world history and you see the crimes of individuals like Henry Kissinger's and others. Donald Rumsfeld's and Dick Cheney's and, Hitler's and Stalin's and Mao Zedong. You name it, Genghis Khan. You don't see these people ever having been arrested, let alone judged. So for all intents and purposes, many people would think, they got away. Well, they didn't get away. the boomerang can also do good. So long as it's going to come back to you, your action, which I gave the example or metaphor of it being a boomerang, it can also go and caress, soothe the wounds of an injured person. It can give medicine on its way to make its full loop to come back to you. It can give flowers, it can give fragrance of love and kindness to the world. It can heal. It could be a boomerang of a smile, of protection, someone who needs protection, of you to stand up and voice the silent cries of those who don't have a voice, who are not permitted to have a voice, like the people in Lebanon, like the Palestinians in Palestine, like those Iranian 168 young girls and their family members and all those teachers who died. Voiceless. So you give them voice. That's a wonderful, good work that you're doing. It comes back, Sometimes the action is given many criteria, by the way, as far as the timing goes, in its return. Some actions will have, in a sense, the boomerang will come back to you faster than at other times. And that is dependent on many, many factors. Simply because you're holding the clipboard and you hold your alarm clock or your timer, you're running your timer and you're saying, okay, it hasn't happened yet, so it doesn't exist. No. Your methods of measurement are not suitable because you're not seeing the multi-layers that Kamma involves. There's so many different variables involved. But one thing's for sure, the boomerang is headed your way. If it has left your hand, your toss, it is headed your way. Guaranteed. It might take its time, just like those individuals I mentioned who died thinking that they got away. But they are all hit with a nasty, terrible surprise. And there's no escape from that until they pay their debt, the heavy karmic debt of their evil actions. So, is the momentum going? That should be a question we ask ourselves, even if we're not engaging in it, in the action. Again, as I said, it might be an evil action, which more often than not is the case these days, because that is the Kamma of the population today. We have also invited such evil by our neglect of our own virtue, virtuous living. We have closed both of our eyes to not see things when they were going south, when they were going towards impurity. And then we end up in this mess, glorification of evil, at least not questioning what's going on. Now, fortunately, there's more and more people seeing the blatant lies, even though there's still a tremendous, powerful, strong current in the opposite direction to keep us blind, to keep telling us lies, to perpetuate this monotony of delusion. As people get poisoned, children get poisoned, from the moment of their birth, from the moment they land. Cereal boxes, you look at the cereal boxes, most of it is poison, literally poison. So one has to take responsibility. So you cannot stick your head into the sand and say, if I don't see it, it's not happening to me. Like those idiots who say, I don't believe in Kamma. It's against my religion, or it doesn't happen. It's like, it's like somebody who stands at this edge of a cliff and says, I'm going to take a step forward, and because I'm not going to fall because I don't believe in gravity. And I'm not going to fall. I just believe that I'm going to be floating. It doesn't apply to me. That's the delusion that as a society we've believed and talked ourselves into. By the way, even you look into the just because I said so many people don't believe in Kamma because let's say they come from a Christian background or upbringing, many of them have not read the Bible or the Gospel, New Testament especially. That's what makes, that's the source of the Christian faith, by the way, not the Old Testament. Okay? Even Jesus brings up the topic of Kamma. I remember when I was reading it the first time, I think I was 10 or 12. Later on I asked, when I was in the Christian monastery studying to be a priest, future monk, Christian monk, I used to ask my teachers, biblical studies, theology teachers, what is that? I don't make sense of it. What is that? I didn't know Kamma, the principle of karma. Jesus is specifically asking his students as to who the public is saying he is. Clearly, in the next following sentences, you see what he intends to ask, what he's asking. When the students, the apostles, his disciples say, some people say, Lord, that you are Elijah who's back, or you are Moses, or you are so-and-so who's back. Back from where? Back from where? I think it was Nicene congregation or conference that they had, the meeting in the 4th, I think, maybe 5th century, Common Era, where they erased that principle from both Eastern and Western churches. They elected to remove the principle of Kamma, specifically of rebirth, from Christian principles, the teachings, whatever was there. And many other things were removed, which left people in ignorance. Because once you remove the principle of Kamma, the person then becomes susceptible to delusion, even more so. Because you also take out the accountability. Now, fortunately, in the East, we have and have had the principle of rebirth being taught. They don't shun it, the possibility of it. And this is key. So anytime you brush it off, you shun it, you say it's unimportant or it's unscientific. First of all, it is scientific. Every action has its reaction. We know that principle. It's the same. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed. What is that? It's the circulation of transformation of energy from one state to the next. From solid to liquid to gas to plasma. Changes of state, physical as well as chemical changes that happen. Nothing comes out of nowhere. Nothing goes into nowhere. It's just changing its structure. That's what we do when we bury our loved ones, right? Dust to dust, ashes to ashes. What is that? The bones are becoming the dust. Person's body gets cremated, it turns into ashes. What do you do then? It is turned back to earth, given back to the elements, and recycled. The energy is still there. It simply is changing and constantly. Now, similarly, actions, the momentum of the actions cannot be destroyed. They don't go into a black hole, into oblivion. Poof, gone. Unfortunately, many people who engage in doing evil actions have convinced themselves or hang out with other similar-minded fools that tell them each other that, yeah, I'm going to get away with it. It's very dangerous because you're gambling with your own life, not just this life, but the continuation of your experiencing samsara, rebirth, your next stop, and it's going to be a long, long way station. If you engage in harmful actions, the momentum of your attitude is towards doing evil deeds, will take you to experience a terrible existence, a hellish existence in hells. I insist on expressing these principles. This is not from me, a Buddhist monk, making up things or, somehow fascinated by this or anything. Absolutely not. This is coming from a place of concern, deep concern for each other, for us, for human beings living in the world today who are neglectful, who are oblivious of these things. That's why I'm trying to bring it to people's attention. And many people don't like it. Many people want to, if they hear this recording, they just want to fast forward or just stop it or just move on to the next clip, something else, something more interesting. Until when, though? So make the actions you're committing. If you're not committing an evil action, wonderful, but you have to create the opposite. If you've done some terrible things in your past, and now, thankfully, you're not able to do it for this or that reason, at least have the positive intention to be regretful of those actions. Perhaps if there are those individuals whom you've harmed, they're available, reach out to them, apologize in one way or the other, sincerely, frankly, honestly. And very importantly, go ahead and do the opposite of what you've done. Because so long as you're still alive, the boomerang is still in the air. At least you have another shot. You can throw it again, but this time you can do wonderful things with it, with your actions, with your intentional actions, in your mind, in your speech, and in your bodily actions. Before it's too late. When is it too late? When we die. You will not make new Kamma when you are in hell. Okay? You can't. You're simply going to be on the receiving end of the negative impact. And nobody can dodge what's coming. And what's coming is simply the fruits of one's actions. And no, you don't have to be doing a terrible, heinous crime to end up in hell. The Buddha was very clear on this. Even lying gets us there. Praising those who lie gets us there. You don't have to have killed someone, harmed someone, stolen something from someone that doesn't belong to you. You might not have physically done those things, but you praise those who do. You encourage others to do, the Buddha says. That will be landing us in hell, for sure, the Buddha says. The moment you close your eyes, you will be directly dragged and deposited there, he says. Deposited there. Faster than you can deposit your check into the ATM. How about that? Faster than you can pull your money out of the ATM. It's immediate. There's no purgatory in Buddhism, by the way. There's no waiting period, waiting hall. Stand there, sit there, wait for your next, until you're called type of a thing. There's no such thing in Buddhism. The Buddha never taught such a thing. He clearly, again and again, explained it is immediate. Other traditions that later on came up and called themselves Buddhist, different denominations, they made up their own philosophies, this and that. Oh, you're still going to linger for, 49 days or 7 weeks, up to that. It's all nonsense. It's not Buddhist. The Buddha never taught those things, like Bardo and all those in Tibetan Buddhism. None of it applies to the teachings of the Buddha. These were later influences from different traditions other than what the Buddha taught. And it's immediate. It's immediate. So while we are alive, we can still change the trajectory of the boomerang. We can either make it go out, leave our hand, our toss, and go and heal the world, do wonderful things. And if we've done some harmful things, we've all done some things that we're not proud of. Who hasn't? But you can go ahead and change that because you're still alive. There's still air in your lungs. There's still life pumping through your veins and arteries. You can still make a change. Start with your thoughts, then your speech, then your physical actions. And don't waste this life. Sukhyoto.